On today's episode, we have a battle of the brands where we take 12 rod and reel brands and we pair them up head-to-head style to see who comes out on top. We also have a familiar face that secures yet another Major League Fishing title, and we talk about preventing cross-contamination of water in your kayak and the most overused phrases in fishing. All that and more on this episode of Tackle Talk.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Dance, and you're listening to Tackle Talk.
This is the Tackle Talk Podcast, brought to you by American Legacy Fishing and Outdoors. World-class fishing gear, unmatched personal service. Now, here's your host, Andrew Hayes.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Tackle Talk Podcast. As always, we are brought to you by American Legacy Fishing and Outdoors. And if you go to www.americanlegacyfishing.com, you're going to see a great website that they just remodeled earlier this year to make it even easier to find your favorite gear from your favorite Midwestern retailer in the country. American Legacy Fishing carries a great selection of rods, reels, baits, tackle, line, whatever you need. They're always the first place that I check. I feel great buying my gear from American Legacy because they're a great mom and pop owned family tackle shop right there in southern Indiana. They ship nationwide. They have fast shipping, great customer service. They have a price match guarantee on their website. They have a great elite program where when you join that, you get 10% back on every single order you make. You get free shipping with no minimums. There's just so many reasons why I love and continue to support American Legacy Fishing. Also, I don't know if you even knew, we have the American Legacy Fishing Show, which is a podcast that me and Brian Dolney over at American Legacy Fishing started a few months ago. We just do one episode a month every first Thursday of the month. So the next one should be coming out this coming Thursday, but there's like 5 or 6 back episodes that you guys can go listen to, where we basically just take subjects from the folks over on the American Legacy Fishing Facebook page, and we talk about them for about 4 or 5 minutes, kind of a pardon the interruption style show. Just a lot more laid back and a lot more kind of fun and a little less prepped than what Tackle Talk normally is. So go check that out if you haven't already. But as always, go support American Legacy Fishing over at www.americanlegacyfishing.com, and you can use code TACKLETALK5 for an extra 5% off both regularly priced and sale items. Again, www.americanlegacyfishing.com and use code TACKLETALK5. Okay, folks, first thing here, really quickly, we had Stage 6 of the Major League Fishing Bass Pro Tour just wrap up over at the Potomac River in Marbury, Maryland, and that was June 26th through 29th. So let's hit your top 10 here really fast to keep you guys updated. 10th place was Keith Carson. 9th place went to Spencer Shuffield. 8th place, Keith Poche. 7th went to James Elam. 6th, Adrian Avina. 5th went to Zach Burge. 4th place, Cole Floyd. 3rd, Bradley Roy. 2nd place, Ron Nelson. And 1st place, the otter himself, Ott Defo.
2, 1,
above all else, I give God all the glory for this. I knew I thought I had a chance, after practice. I really did. These kind of fisheries, you just have no idea what kind of weight it's going to take. And I thought I could have a good tournament, maybe make a top 10. And it all come down to decisions. It really did. The first day I started right here, probably right here, literally right here was probably about where I made my first cast. And had, caught them really good half the day, left here, went to another place, caught them good there, had a great first day. And, the second day I went to come here and some stuff happened and I decided not to end up starting here. And it almost cost me. It truly did, because it almost cost me. I didn't, that day the tide was super high. We had big rain. Just lots of things changed. And I really fought through that day and got past that. And then yesterday I'm like, I have to get back here. Got in here, caught them good again. And then today it was a pretty easy decision that I got to at least go back there and give it a try. It's been so good. But found an untapped area back there in the back, and we really made some hay in that little bitty creek. So, yes. Oh, praise God. God's good all the time. When you win, when you lose, He's good all the time.
Now, to be honest, I didn't get to watch much of this with work and family stuff, but all I gotta say is it's a great day when Ott Defo wins a derb. Ott Defo is one of the best there is out there in fishing on and off the water. He's a fantastic ambassador to the sport. He's spreading positivity and faith, and he's just a guy that seems to like stay clear of all of the drama. He's always got a smile on his face, and he just goes out there and he puts his head down and he fishes the way that he wants to. So kudos to one of the truly great humans in fishing, Ott Defo, for adding yet another win to his already extensive bass fishing resume. Now, this means that we have one stage left, Stage 7 at Saginaw Bay, August 7th through 10th, and I believe this is updated. We're basically looking at Jacob Wheeler with like a 27-point Angler of the Year lead over Jake Lawrence, with Drew Gill right behind Jake in third heading into this last event. So the AOI race right now is in Jacob Wheeler's court, heading into Saginaw Bay. Again, a little bit of a break here. You're going to have to wait a little bit over a month to watch that one over on MajorLeagueFishing.com. Okay, folks, and finally here, before we hit the main portion of today's episode, this isn't really an ad. This is more of a public service announcement. The Tackle Talk Bass Essentials box from Dark Horse Tackle is now fully stocked and available over at the darkhorsetackle.com website and shipping immediately. So no more wait lists, no more back orders. They are in stock and will ship within 48 hours of your order. So this box is a project that I work with Zach and Josh over at Dark Horse for a few months on, creating a single purchase box that was chock full of what I would call the essential baits for bass fishing. So whether you're just starting out, whether you're building your first true tackle box, or whether you just want to beef up your current box with some high quality custom baits from great American companies and save some money along the way, we've got you covered. And I promise this box is loaded. This box has like 3 times as many things in it as a normal Dark Horse tackle box. It's right in front of me. It's huge. It's heavy. I mean, we're talking like custom painted poppers, buzz baits, bladed jigs, custom painted square bills, flipping jigs, spinner baits, swim baits, worms, craws, swim bait heads, wacky rig hooks, wide gap worm hooks, gift cards to Dark Horse Tackle, tungsten flipping weights, and a ton more. All baits that were handpicked by me, including colors, sizes, companies, everything. And if you want to see a full walkthrough of what's in this box, you can actually head over to our YouTube channel at the Tackle Talk Podcast and see a full 14-minute video where I open up one of these for myself and we talk about everything that's in the box. But if you want to grab your own limited edition Tackle Talk Bass Essentials box, all you got to do, head over to www.darkhorsetackle.com. It's right there on the homepage, or you can click boxes and subscriptions at the top of the page and select single boxes and then click the Tackle Talk box. But again, it's available right now from the great folks over at Dark Horse Tackle, a really fun project and a box that I know you guys are all going to love. So go check that out. Okay, everybody, let's get into the majority of the episode today. And today on Tackle Talk, I want to have a little fun here. Today, I think we're going to do what we're going to call Battle of the Brands, where basically we're going to take 12 different brands and put them head to head, sort of face-off style, to see which ones we like better overall and our opinions and our reasons why, obviously, but we're also going to get your opinion too. And that's because we did a poll of over 600 people to let you vote on these brands too. And I think with a sample size of 600 people, I feel like we've got enough responses to hopefully accurately reflect the market's feelings on these brands as well. So we've got the opinion of the public, we've got my opinion, and we're going to have a little bit of fun with this, just sort of like an unbiased, no BS, no sugarcoating, just some pretty raw thoughts and opinions on 12 of some of the biggest brands in fishing. So today's topic is going to be rods and reels. That's all we're talking about with these brands, rods or reels. We're not talking baits, we're not talking line, any of that. So if any of these brands have other things that they make, we're not referencing those today. It's just rods and reels. So we're going to see who wins these head-to-head matchups right now. The first matchup that we are going to go to today is the two 800-pound gorillas in the room. You've got Shimano and Daiwa. And I tried to pair these up so that these are fun head-to-heads where you have like similar brands or, similar characteristics or popularity or followings. You don't want to have like Daiwa versus Cast King, right? No offense to Cast King, but that's a pretty lopsided battle. I wanted these to be pretty even. So Shimano versus Daiwa. First, let's see what the public said. The public went 64% for Shimano and 36% for Daiwa. So not a complete runaway, but to be honest, I thought this was going to be a lot closer than it was, but you guys voted overwhelmingly for Shimano. Now, as for me, on this one, I do have to agree, although again, I think it's closer than a 64-36 split. My basic thoughts on these two are on the reel side. I think they're far and away the two best reel brands out there on the market, no question. And I like them both, but for me, I think both of these feel amazing right out of the box, but my experience is that Shimano holds up better over time. And it comes down to me, durability and longevity. And I know that of the probably, 20 Shimanos and 10 plus Daiwas I've had over the years, it's always the Daiwas, it seems, that start to give me trouble in that like 3 to 4 years down the road after I buy them. The one exception being the Gen 1 Vanfords from Shimano. Now, we have a new Vanford, so this isn't really an issue anymore, but I did have a lot of issues with those line roller bearings that are kind of like in those Gen 1 Vanfords, and they screech and they sound like a banshee, and it seems like it wasn't just me. Other people seem to have that issue too. I had buddies that had that issue. Seems like something at the price point that should have been fixed, because then you can go get something like a Daiwa BG or a Tatula, MQ or whatever, and those held up really well. But on the rod side, I think I'm going to give the slight nod to Daiwa where we sit today. And I just think over multiple price points and the number of product lines they have out there, Daiwa is a little bit up on Shimano in the rod game. Shimano for me right now is basically like the SLX or the X Pride B, maybe with a sneaky side of Intenza that a lot of people don't talk about, but I'm not really a Poison Adrena guy. I'm not a Poison Ultima guy. I can't afford that. But on the other side, I really do like the Daiwa Tatula XT for the price point. I think the Zillion rods are awesome, and the reels for that matter. The Daiwa Tatula Elite rods are really nice, so a very, very slight nod to Daiwa, I think, on the rod side. But overall, which again is the question we pose to the public, I'm siding with their decision. I'm going to go Shimano here. Okay, next up, we have a little bit tougher one for me personally, and it's going to be Luz versus Abu Garcia. Now, let's go to the public. Survey says from the public, 59% went for Luz and 41% went to Abu Garcia. Now, that's surprising to me as well. An 18-point swing for Luz over Abu Garcia. And I really think that this is the most interesting part of the episode, is seeing what you guys think, not me, right? We talk about what I think all the time, every week here on the show. It's really cool to see where you guys sit on these brands. And just like last matchup, it doesn't really surprise me that Luz won, but the margin of victory is a little shocking. I figured this would be maybe a couple points separation between the two. I thought this was pretty evenly matched up. But on the two of these, Abu Garcia definitely has, I would say, like the longer pedigree and the longer track record. But I think lately they've kind of taken a couple plays off. I mean, you've got like the Revo lineup, which is all over the place and doesn't seem to have a good lane or fan base. It's just kind of like there. And then, some other attempt from Abu Garcia will be some really high end that really misses the mark. Like, I think the Xenon rods and reels were a bit of a swing and a miss from the consumer side from Abu Garcia. It just seemed like they went too much for like a Lumis-esque type buyer, and it didn't really land. And then even rods that I used to use, like the Veritas series, or back in the day, the Vengeance series, all those just seem to have kind of fallen out of favor a little bit with the regular public. And then you have Luz. And Luz is a brand that I've never really been a big fan of, but lately, if I had to buy stock in one of these two brands, Abu Garcia or Luz, I'm buying Luz stock. They at least seem like they're trying, right? And I can't help but feel that sometimes both of these brands are just like that meme of the guy that's like poorly drawn, that's poking, something on the ground with a stick saying, "Come on, on, do something, right? That meme, I feel like that's Luz and Abu Garcia a lot of the time. But it's not that they're not doing anything, because I guess that's not the right way to put it. They're just not doing anything that actually gets people excited. Like the Revos will always come out with some, I don't know, new 28-to-1 fastest reel you've ever seen that nobody actually wants or needs. Luz will come out with some overpriced reel with a new braking system that's not really new to anybody except Luz. And then they'll just all keep their staples. And Luz will have the Speed Spool LFS, the Tournament Pro, the Mach series, which is geared, I think, a lot of times to like newer and younger anglers. And then you have Abu Garcia that has like the Black Max, that's the ultra cheap reel that every angler starts out with. And then you have your fairly overpriced rest of the lineup. But I think at the end of the day, to my knowledge, and again, I think this is true, both of these brands are doyo reel companies, meaning that they come from the same factory in China, the same parent, company or whoever oversees the manufacturing for all of these. And I think, and again, I'm like 90% sure on all of this. I should probably check it before I talk about this stuff, but I feel pretty confident because I know this is how it used to be. It was like Luz, Abu Garcia, I think Bass Pro Shops is made in those same doyo factories. And so really it comes down to, with a lot of those type of component build or built by the same factory types of brands, it's not so much like the badge that they stick on the side of it. It's what brand is willing to give you the best components at the best price. And I think a lot of times if you compare these two, I think the Luz reels, the reels that have the Luz badge on the side of them, give you a little bit better value over the past few years than Abu Garcia does. It seems like you get a more durable, maybe like an aluminum frame at a cheaper price point with Luz than you do with Abu Garcia. Little stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like bang for your buck, you're getting a little bit farther with Luz. And then on the rod side, I am right dead set in the middle. Luz are flashier, I guess. Abu Garcia seems to be tailored to an older buyer, neither of which are shocking anybody right now with what they're coming out with. So all things considered, I'm leaning Luz over Abu Garcia on this one. Again, I probably have to side with the public here. I think you guys probably got this one right. Luz, barely by a hair for me, is going to go over Abu Garcia. Okay, next one up here, this is going to be a fun one. We've got two companies that I would call a bit of a wild card. You've got 13 Fishing and you've got Ark. Now, you guys didn't think this was very close at all. I thought this was going to be close. I was very, very wrong. The public voted 65% for 13 Fishing and 35% for Ark. And I can confidently say, like I said a second ago, I got this one completely wrong. Not just by margin of victory, but by who was going to win at all. I thought for sure the public was going to pick Ark here. But if I look at these two brands individually for myself, 13 Fishing, the public's choice, is a company that, I don't know, probably back in like 2016, 2017, I fished a ton of 13 Fishing gear. I probably almost had exclusively 13 Fishing gear back then. I had a lot of Omen rods. There were some called Defy Blacks back in the day. I had 3 bait casters that were all 13 Fishing Inception reels. And back then, I loved almost everything about my 13 Fishing gear, except that I broke more 13 fishing rods than any other brand that I'd ever broke in my life. And that's still true to this day. Almost every 13 fishing rod that I ever had got snapped at some point. And I've talked to a lot of people since then that use 13 fishing rods to this day, and they say stuff like, hey, I know that was a problem back then. It's not really a problem anymore. They've changed a lot of things, all that kind of thing. But when you snap, like, I don't know, 6 or 7 rods in 2 years, all from the same company, without you doing anything differently with those rods than you did with any other rods in your lineup, it leaves a sour taste in your mouth for sure. But then on the reel side, I've never really had a problem with any of the 13 reels that I've ever had. And I still think if you can find those older silver Inceptions used, they're tank reels that you can find sometimes on like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or whatever for like $50 used. Good buy for $50. Go get those all day long. Those were great reels that really held me up pretty well when I first got started out fishing. But also 13 Fishing kicks tail in the ice fishing world too, if you want a little extra bump for 13 Fishing. But on the other side, you have Ark. And Ark is a company that really intrigues me because if I want to give Ark some flowers here, they are one of the quote-unquote smaller companies that seem to be trying to push the envelope, at least on the reel side of things, and put out interesting designs and interesting concepts. Like the Gravity series that they have is really cool. When you get up to, I think it's the Gravity 7, then you start to get into their patented braking system and some really cool internals. I know that Gravity 7 comes with, I don't know what they call it, but basically it doesn't have that long spool shaft that almost every other reel has. The spool's just kind of floating in there with almost a little nub instead of a shaft that goes all the way through the reel. Some really cool design features and things that those Gravity reels have put in at pretty solid price points. But the rods, on the other hand, I don't know really how to explain my experience with Ark rods except to say that they're rods that seem to feel really nice on like the showroom floor or at the expo or in your garage, but they're not my favorite when you actually get them out on the water. And I actually watched this happen to a buddy. I won't say his name, but there is a buddy that I know around here that had a full lineup of Dobbins rods and like a ton of them. And after feeling a few of the new Arks, he traded his whole Dobbins lineup in for a whole Ark rod lineup, and at the time was pumped about it. We're talking like, I don't know how many it was, 20, 30 rods, maybe even more than that. And if you ask him right now, to this day, he will tell you that he regrets that choice. So I've seen it happen before. The rods are just not my favorite. I'm sure there are some good models in there or some good deals or whatever. It's just not going to be my favorite overall brand of rod. So where am I going to land on this one? This time, I think I have to go against the public. Sorry, guys. You guys voted overwhelmingly for 13 Fishing, but I'm going to go with Ark here, just on the fact that even though I may not love all of their products, I do like what they're doing, and I like the direction they're going as a brand. I hope it continues. I hope they keep pushing that envelope a little bit and become one of those cool dark horse brands that really competes with your big two in the industry. Okay, we're halfway done here. That is 6 brands down, 6 to go. The next one here is a bit of a doozy. We have favorite rods versus Cast King. Now, this one is a little painful, but before I give my 2 cents, let's see how you guys voted. The public voted 58% for Cast King and 42% for favorite. Now, what's hilarious here is if you would have done this poll like 5 years ago, this probably would have been the most lopsided of them all. Favorite was on top of the world for a very brief moment in history when the Guggen Squad kind of hit their peak, and it was an intense but short-lived pandemonium. And now, favorite fishing, I would almost call an afterthought. And I don't mean that as like a huge kick in the you-know-what to favorite fishing. I just don't think most people even put favorite fishing in the top, I don't know, like 15 rod brands out there. And there really aren't that many rod brands when you think of like nationally known names. Favorite is not very high up on that list anymore. So favorite stock, in my opinion, is about as low as it's ever been. Like we're talking GameStop stock before it became a meme, like pennies. On the other side, you have a company whose stock was pennies. They kind of were a laughing stock. They were a joke in Cast King, but now seemingly, I'm not going to go as far as to say that they've righted the ship, but I think they've at least turned the steering wheel enough to miss the iceberg. I'd say they're like heading in the general vicinity of the right direction. And Cast King, like I said, used to be like a joke brand. It was like those Amazon or Facebook ads where you could buy the reels so cheap that they wanted you to buy them on like an impulse buy and the price looked too good to be true. It was like, what's a company called Pissafun or whatever you say? I still don't know how you're supposed to say that brand, but you guys know the one I'm talking about. It's like PISCIFUN or something like that. But now, over the last few years, Cast King has at least started to put out serviceable products, especially on the reel side of things. Now, are they fantastic? No, they're probably not. But are they usable? Yeah, most of them are usable. And the thing that bugs me now about Cast King is that their branding and their lines of reels and their names and the product lines in general just don't seem to make a lot of sense. They're all over the place. It seems like, to me, they're a company that just sort of throws everything at the wall and they just see what sticks. that type of thing. And okay, if this reel doesn't do well, all right, we got 400 other ones over here. The number of SKUs and names and things like that, I mean, it's just like mind-boggling sometimes. There are times where like I feel like you could hold up 2 Cast King reels, call it like, I don't know, hold up a Speed Demon and then an Icon. They don't even look like they were made by the same company. And you can do that with a ton of reels in the Cast King lineup. It's especially weird when you go somewhere like iCast, like I'm going to go in a couple weeks, and they have like 20 of their reels all out on the same table or the same display. It looks like such a hodgepodge, like there's no consistency or continuity across the product lines or names or colors or shapes of the reel, or I mean, it's just component overload. And I think that's something that they need to work on fixing. But overall, this one for me, I'm going to go Cast King out of the two because one brand, Favorite, seems to be kind of on life support, and the other brand, Cast King, seems to have come off of life support and at least be, trending in the right direction. So I'm going to go Cast King here. Okay, next up, we have a polar opposite from our last pairing. We've got a battle of the high-end titans. We have G. Lumis versus Megabass. And again, we're talking rods and reels here only, not baits for Megabass. We're not going into any of that, strictly rods and reels. Now, ironically, these two brands are both like 99.99999% rods. So we're really talking rods with this matchup to make it even more competitive. So what did you guys say? Public says it's going to be 53% for G. Lumis and 47% for Megabass. So our smallest margin of victory of any of the matchups here, razor thin margin, 53-47 in favor of G. Lumis. Now, I expected G. Lumis to win here, but what a showing by Megabass. And I've had very high-end rods from both of these brands, and I still have one of each in my everyday lineup. I've got an NRX and I've got a P5. And strictly from a brand standpoint, I'm probably going to go with G. Lumis. And I know G. Lumis is owned by the same company that owns Shimano, but under the G. Lumis name, GCX, GLX, NRX, I feel like Shannon Sharp there. This reference is probably not going to hit with most people, but like GCX, GLX, NRX, Lakers in 5. But those three lines right there, right? Like the GCX, the GLX, the NRX, they just don't miss. Now, you are paying for it, so they better not miss, but dang it, they do not. And all three of those models I just named are still made here in the USA, too. If that's important to you, fantastic. They're made right there in Woodland, Washington. Some of the G. Lumis rods, I believe, at the smaller price points may be made overseas. Those three, GCX, GLX, NRX, are all still American-made. So, if a G. Lumis is a tried and true luxury vehicle like a Cadillac, then Megabass is like the souped-up Dodge Charger. It is loud, it's flashy, it's new, but it's still a very, very, very nice car just to the right buyer. So like the grips are a really good example. Pick up an expensive Megabass spinning rod and you'll see those like minimalistic, almost skeleton style grips that some people absolutely love, others do not, but they're definitely high end. And both brands are going to give you that sensitive, balanced, lightweight rod. They're also going to give you a price tag that's going to make you think twice about buying it. But of the two, I, along with 53% of you, I guess, am going to go G. Lumis. Okay, and finally here, that brings us to our last matchup of the episode. We have Dobbins versus Fenwick. And I kind of feel like Steve Harvey here, but like survey says 64% for Dobbins and 36% for Fenwick. And I feel like that survey result alone tells us a pretty big story about each of these brands. I think on one hand, you have Dobbins, who if we would have polled this like 2 years ago, probably would have got like 80% of the vote. But they did go down a little bit for two big reasons. One is Fenwick's rebrand and complete revamp, which we'll get to here in a second. And the other is their very public sale of the company, where it changed hands from the original owner, Gary Dobbins, to the much maligned GSM Outdoors. And a lot of people bought Dobbins rods in no small part because of Gary Dobbins himself. Gary is and was the lifeblood of Dobbins rods, and he was their single biggest asset. The rods are great, the warranty is great, but Gary is irreplaceable. But the fact that they still got 64% of the vote tells me that the public has somewhat moved past all of the negativity that came Dobbins' way after that sale. Because I think there was a lot of worry, and rightfully so, about the quality of the rods, about the status of warranty claims, about if policies would change. And now, like a year later, nothing has really changed. The rods are the same, the components are the same, the service is still good, the warranties have stayed the same, and the public can kind of take a big sigh of relief from the Dobbins side of things. Now, I should probably say, I'm talking rods here. Reels, I'm not and have never been impressed with Dobbins reels since they came out. For the money, there are way better options out there. I feel like they were just put out there so that some retailers could have a Dobbins combo to sell. But if we're strictly talking rods here, there's still probably my favorite overall brand across the board. But then you have Fenwick, who went through a very public rebrand and redesigned every single rod in their lineup from the ground up about 2 years ago with the help of a great rod design team, and they sank a ton of money and effort and time into breathing new life into Fenwick. And I'll tell you, as someone who has used quite a few Fenwicks of old and Fenwicks of new, they're very impressive on the newer side of things, these rods they came out with. It's not the Fenwick that you were used to. They've modernized those rods a lot, and I think they deserve a lot of credit for that, right? And honestly, it's probably something that Pure Fishing, who owns both Fenwick and Abu Garcia, should probably think about doing down the road with Abu Garcia at this point, because that brand now is the one that needs some work. But where do we end up here? I think overall, I still have to side with Dobbins here. From the Fury to the Caden to the Sierra, Champ XP, Champ Extreme, there are so many killer rods in there. And I would say like 6 months ago, I would have been a lot more worried about this answer. But luckily, it seems like that storm has kind of passed and Dobbins is going to be A-okay, at least for the time being. So there you go, folks. There is some real big picture brand talk. 12 brands, your thoughts, my thoughts, just some fun little back and forth on where we think some of these brands currently stand. And who knows? All it takes is one awesome product from some of these brands that were slacking a little bit to make a splash and really kind of reset the table. And hopefully we see some of that in a couple weeks at ICAST. Okay, folks, we have time for probably like 2 really quick mailbag questions before we hop off for this week. So let's check in and see what we've got here. The first question is from Chris, and he says, first and foremost, I love the show and look forward to new episodes. The waters in Ohio and New Jersey are similar in that we have a lot of the same vegetation and growth factors. My question is about cleanliness. As a kayak fisherman, I am diligent about keeping my kayak clean as not to cross-contaminate from bodies of water that I fish. I'm also diligent about cleaning the lures and baits that I throw and even my reels and line. Is this just plain going too far, or should I keep my post-trip ritual? Thanks for all you do, and I've gained a lot of great insight from your show. Thanks again. Look forward to your next episode, Chris. Chris, that is an easy one. I don't worry about this one bit. I think it's a great idea. I think it's very environmentally conscious of you for sure, but I can say with 100% certainty that I have never cleaned my kayak or my baits for the purpose of reducing cross-contamination. Now, big boats, maybe, right? I know that's how like zebra mussels got in a couple of our local lakes here, but for a kayak, I just don't think that it's probably worth it. A kayak is so like flat on the bottom and, you know, you're scraping it in and out when you're dragging it up and putting it in the bed of your truck or on top of your car or something. The chances of you like bringing something over that's going to be detrimental to the next body of water that you fish, I feel like is going to be pretty slim. Now, again, that is just me, some redneck nobody talking and not a biologist by any means, but no, I don't think that's something that you really need to worry about. I wouldn't be concerned about it. I would clean your kayak if you want to clean your kayak, right? If you want to get dirt off of it, if you want to make sure it keeps looking good, not because of cross-contamination. Same with your baits. I think it's great that you're trying to be responsible and trying to, you know, be as helpful as possible. I just don't think it's necessary. So from me, not biologist, again, full disclosure, big red flashing light there, not a scientist. I don't worry about that stuff in a kayak. Okay, and the last question here is from Adrian, and he says, hey, Andrew, love the show. And then parentheses, it says, I feel like 90% of your mailbag submissions start that way. And then he says, what I would propose is a poll versus a mailbag question. What are the top 5 most used words or phrases in bass fishing right now? Okay, so are we talking, I guess I'm going to take this like overused phrases. I think that's funny to think about, right? Like the things that maybe mildly annoy me when you hear people say them because they say them too much. Like what are the most overused phrases in fishing? That's how I'm going to take this question. And with that, a few things come to mind. The first one is going to be the term game changer, for sure. We've made a lot of jokes about it over the years, but even after everybody jokes about it, you're still going to hear that term game changer about 10,000 times at ICAST here in a few weeks. People can't help themselves. Even though they know that it's overused, it just kind of gets word vomited out when these pros or influencers or whatever get in front of a camera and they're supposed to talk about these products. You will hear game changers said in a like non-ironic way here in a couple weeks. So that's everybody's favorite descriptor of any product that comes out in the fishing world. Another thing that bugs me, and I don't know, maybe this is just me, but it's the term content. And I think that is like the most pretentious way to say video or photo or episode ever, right? Content. I'm here doing content. No, you're shooting a video on your phone, or you're taking a selfie, or you've got a GoPro strapped to your chest and you're going fishing. Using the word content to describe everything you do to document something just drives me a little nuts sometimes. Another one that we have that's been kind of hot as of the past couple of years is BFS. And I think that a lot of people use the term BFS as a catch-all phrase to just mean small things, right? Not every small bait is a BFS bait. It could just be a downsized version of something that already exists. We talked about that last week with like the new chatterbait, but it just sounds cooler when you say BFS, so everybody does it. It's like when every brand a couple years ago made a very small version of some soft plastic that they already made, and they called it a Ned version of that bait. Not every small bait is a Ned bait. Just call it what it is. It's just a smaller size. A 2-inch rage crawl is not a Ned crawl. It's just a 2-inch rage crawl. So I'm counting that as 2. I'm going to go BFS and Ned. So that gets us to 4. We need one more. I would say the 5th most overused term or word you're seeing a lot right now is dice. Everybody and their brother is coming out with some sort of dice bait. And I promise you will see a few more in the coming weeks. We know about some of them already. Previously, you had the OSP. Obviously, they had theirs. That was probably one of the first ones, I'm guessing. Then Strike King came out with the Tumbleweed. You've got the G-Crack Q-Bomb. You've got the Hide Up, whatever they call it, the Quake or Quake, or however you say that. The Three Brothers has a dice bait. And now, we heard, Z-Man is coming out with their own dice bait, and so is supposedly Woo Tungsten. So everybody and their brother is about to have a dice bait on the market. So there's my list: game changer, content, BFS, Ned, and dice. All right, everybody, that is today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Tackle Talk. As always, you can go find us on the web, tackletalkpodcast.com. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all at Tackle Talk Podcast. And we'll see you right back here next Tuesday for another brand new episode of Tackle Talk.
Thank you for listening to the Tackle Talk Podcast. Tackle Talk is produced by Andrew Hayes. Copyright 2019. For more, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.